have finished shredding up all of our meat, and it looks really nice. And really, part of the reason why I like to add the beef and the pork together is because it gives it a nice, it's not too thick, it's not too thin. What we're going to do now is we're going to dump about 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter flavored vegetable shortening and melt it in a pan. Now if you want to use lard, you certainly can. Nice and done. And what we're going to add to that is our meat. Toss it around a little bit because it tends to want to stick on you. We're going to turn our heat down to medium at this time. And we're going to sprinkle about 2 tablespoons of flour on top as a thickening agent. And we're going to toss that a little bit. And my pan did get a little too hot, so it kind of stuck to the bottom a little bit. But that's alright. It's not a big deal. It'll loosen up in a little while. Alright, that's thickened up. Now we're going to add about 2 cups of the broth that we saved behind that was our cooking liquid. Just going to get that mixed through. And yeah, it looks a little watery, but that's what we want because we're going to let this kind of simmer for about 30 minutes. We're going to go ahead and start adding our spices that we mixed together earlier. And we're going to sprinkle it in about a half a cup at a time. And give it a stir. And you can really smell that chili powder and stuff starting to come together. We're only adding at this time what the recipe called for. Later on, we'll add some more to taste. And if it appears a little bit dry, which this one does, go ahead and just add a little more of your broth mixture. Because as I said, we're going to let it simmer for about 30 minutes. So if it's too much moisture, you can always just let it simmer for a couple more minutes. It's not going to hurt it anyway. Alright, this is pretty much stirred up. We're going to put a cover on it and we're going to let it simmer for about 30 minutes and we're going to check it probably about every 5 to 10 minutes just to make sure that it hasn't run dry and that it's looking good. The meat and seasonings have been simmering for about 30 minutes. I've turned off the stove and I'm going to go ahead and let it sit and cool down for probably about another 20 or 30 minutes. We're going to go ahead and go over and get the mesa harina dough ready to start making our tamales. One thing I had not mentioned earlier, before you go to make your mesa harina and stuff like that, you need to soak your corn husks. What I have here is just a pot of boiling water, and what I'm going to do is place 2 packages of the husks in there. And when you get them, sometimes they're wound up against each other like these are. Sometimes they're all laid out flat. It just depends the brand that you get. Either way, you can take a pot of boiling water and put them in it, and we're going to kind of submerge these here in a second. But they've got to be soft. You've got to be able to use these things. So we're going to go ahead and put them in here, and we're going to push them down so that way they're in the water or under the water. But at the beginning of everything, whenever you start your tamales at the start of the day, you can put them in there and let them start going. These are going to set, I'm going to let them boil for about 5 minutes with the top on, then I'm going to turn it off, give them a stir, and they're just going to sit there for, like I said, about 45 minutes total. We're ready now to start making the mesa dough that we're going to use to wrap the tamales in. We're going to start off with about 6 cups of the mesa harina flour, which is this. To that, we're going to add some spices, and that spice mix is about 2 tablespoons of paprika, 3 tablespoons of salt, half a tablespoon of cumin, 1½ tablespoons of chili powder, and 1½ tablespoons of garlic powder. I'm doing that to give it a little bit of flavor. So we got that mixed in. Also, you can see to my right here, we have our corn husks that were in the boiling water. We set them out so they can drain a little bit because we don't want it to be too much water. Okay, back to this. We're going to add 2 cups of oil to this. You could also add 2 cups of creamed vegetable shortening or lard. That's your choice. I'm using the oil because it makes it much easier to deal with for me. That's my preference. Once that's kind of incorporated, and you're going to need a big spoon because this takes a little bit of arm power. Once that's pretty much in there, we're going to start adding our broth that we had left over. Right here I have about 4 cups. I'm going to go ahead and add all of that. And the recipe calls for 8 cups. But we're going to start with 4, and you're just going to keep stirring this until it gets nice and thick. What we're looking for is the consistency of, well, we might need to add some more, is the consistency of thick peanut butter. And at first it doesn't look like it's going to happen, like I was saying. But then once that that flour starts absorbing, it just turns like this. So we're going to need to add some more broth. So this is soaked up what we have. I'm going ahead and add 2 more cups of the broth and get that stirred in. We're almost there, but not quite. We still need a little bit more. I'm going to add in about 1 cup. Alright, we ended up not adding that last cup, so we ended up just about 7 cups. And we're looking for something like this. It's kind of almost like thick peanut butter. What we're going to do is we're going to spread it on the corn husks, so we want it to be a little bit flexible. We don't want it to be so hard that we can't. Now we're ready to go and start assembling the tamales.